Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon Podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon Podcast. South Africans know the routine by now. Load shedding, municipal debt, prepaid meter issues, billing disputes, people paying for electricity they don't fully trust, and municipalities struggling to collect revenue they say they're owed. At the same time, solar is exploding. Homes are becoming mini power stations, and the old utility model suddenly looks old. So here's the question. What if utilities stopped behaving like disconnected systems and started behaving like modern technology platforms? My guest today, Andrew Reeve of Mezura. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Rocco. Awesome to be here.
So I think this whole conversation came about from, I made a post about solar systems becoming mini power stations, and then I don't know if it was you or someone commented in and tagged you in the body or in the comments section saying you need to speak to this guy because they're building basically the brains behind mini power stations. That's right? That's how it came about.
Yeah, that's how it came about. Someone commented.
I love that you're doing your own marketing. If you're not going to do it, then no one else is going to do it for you.
Yeah, no, marketing is something, when you're building a startup, you always hear it from guys in the solar industry. If you don't do marketing, you're not going to get anywhere. So it's so true. When you're building something, you don't think or even comprehend how big marketing can actually be.
Yes. All right. So let's get into it. The obvious elephant in the room, it's that the South African utility environment is very fragmented. You've got municipal debt, infrastructure strain, growing solar adoption, revenue leakage, and then there's a lot of trash issues in between. So what made you sit down and said, okay, cool, how can we sort of figure this out without just patching the system and sort of, let's fix it with duct tape? Like, how do we actually build something out of this?
Yeah, I think it stems from, South Africans in general. We're a very advanced nation when it comes to technology, and, we're always innovating as we can go. And I think the idea stems from, we currently, our whole prepaid metering landscape and how we interact with utilities is very old-fashioned. I mean, we're dealing with technology that was built in the 1980s, and we buy tokens and topping it up in a dark room in the garage, and there's no notification when your electricity is low. Anything is just lights out, boom. And if you don't have your banking app working, you got to go to the shop to go buy tokens.
And sometimes and sometimes those apps or payment gateways or whatever are offline, or the municipality is offline, and so you can't buy tokens and you don't know what's going on because I don't have power, so I don't know what now.
No, and that's the problem. I think a lot of people are scared to try and attempt to fix something when someone says something about a South African municipality or government. It's almost like no, we don't get involved. It's too difficult. But I think it's a challenge, and if you can solve tough challenges and help people and consumers, and then there's always going to be a market to do something. And I think that's kind of where we are situated at the moment. We are a metering company, but I know metering is looked down upon in the industry. I don't, with all the metering companies out there, I've never heard much great stories.
Okay.
I don't think there's much innovation going on that standpoint. And with the rise of solar, and it's a very crazy time in the South African energy market at the moment. You've got virtual wheeling, you've got just the current inefficiencies with how you buy prepaid electricity today, and then you've got the whole solar market and all of that. And there's a lot of innovation, but it comes down to, if you don't have the metering infrastructure to build this, you're going to struggle to advance in the energy market. And I think that's where we've now pushed our nose in, and we've got about 3 different avenues we're trying to solve. We've got a public sector where we're trying to solve the municipal debt and the inefficiencies in that aspect, to make it easier for municipalities. And then you've got the solar side where we're trying to build, a PV ESCOM is how I like to call it.
Okay.
Actually a utility that's just solar, but it's a new utility. So it's quite an interesting topic to break that down.
Yes.
But essentially, you've got, I think in 2022, 2023, you had the booming solar market. Everyone was terrified. Energy security was a big thing, and And that's where we got the massive solar boom. And it kind of not died down. I think a lot of people are still interested in obviously installing solar. But now you've got the problem of, okay, load shedding is gone for now. I know
for now,
2022.
partly due to solar, yes, and not the government, as they would like us to believe.
Yeah, but now you've got a different challenge. You've got rising tariff costs. So
Yes.
you're in a situation where electricity is so expensive. Now you can go to solar, but now the power purchase agreement has come involved, where instead of paying for the solar upfront, you get a fund that will come in and buy it, and you just pay for the energy you use, which is a great model. It makes sense.
Okay.
So that's where we've come in, and we saw that there's a massive gap in the residential side of the market, and a lot of these funds are funding C&I projects, big farms, office buildings, because the billing and the invoicing is easier to get from a business.
Okay.
If you had to go to a residential estate and you offer them, we'll come and put solar panels in for free, and at the end of the month, we'll just invoice you and have to pay it, which is fine, but you're relying on a trust mechanism.
Yes.
And that's where, if you've got let's say a 40 million rand private estate that wants to do this model, you tell the consumers, you don't have to pay a cent for the solar, but you're going to pay 2 rand for 50 kilowatts. Immediately, that's 50% less than what you're paying in tariff. So it's a no-brainer. It's going to come in. But that's where we've invented something in our meter, where it's prepaid solar. So you top up your meter from an application on your phone. Let's say you put 1,000 rand, you agree on a 2 rand 50 power purchase agreement, and if your credits run out, your electricity shuts off. So you cannot use power if you don't pay for it. So that's essentially what we built in our meter to try and get that across to residents, whether that be funds that are funding these massive solar projects, and that's where we're kind of worming our way in at the moment. Partnering with solar companies. So then, look, you can go to a private estate, offer them to put solar in for free. We'll get a fund that will fund it. Consumers just pay for the electricity. It really is like that. But the infrastructure behind it to pull something like that off is kind of the bottleneck in the industry.
Okay. I want to just piggyback off of that point to the first one that you mentioned, municipal, because I read this week that Eskom is taking charge of 2 municipalities. I'm not sure where they are. I think it's in KZN or Eastern Cape. I might be wrong. But so the municipalities are failing, right? So they're failing. They're indebted to Eskom and they can't recoup the funds. You talked about that trust mechanism of people not paying or whatever. So what is to be done on the municipal side?
I think on the municipal side of things, you've got a fragmented system in general. You've got the inefficiency where a municipality has got to collect that electricity from somewhere. And the infrastructure where it comes down to is the metering. Now, you've got, again, it comes down to a trust issue. If a municipality has a certain amount of money that they have to collect every month, they need to pay Eskom. That money disappears somewhere. Now, that's where South African government and municipalities are following. That's its own story on its own. But when that trust issue is failing, and they're already in debt, and your infrastructure is being, it's inefficient and it's being hacked. I don't know if you've heard of ghost tokens or fraudulent tokens. So that's quite a thing that's harsh in the market. I've seen a couple of articles in the last 12 to 18 months. Something
but I don't think it's major news headlines because I haven't seen any like News 24, Citizen, whatever, Network 24 reports on it.
Yeah, it's been a couple of small articles, but obviously you don't want something that big.
Yes.
So it's essentially, with the rise of AI, people are basically buying electricity tokens. Buying a banking themselves, and they're selling it on a WhatsApp group. You can now buy a 500 rand electricity token for $150. That money is going now straight to the pocket of someone, and that's where. So in a way, I feel bad for the municipalities because already the infrastructure is bad, but the money is disappearing, and they don't have the technology to kind of sort it out.
Yes.
So it's a double-edged sword, and that's the infrastructure that we are trying to build for the municipalities on a public sector. We come in with our meters, really military-grade security that we built in. We built something called the Autonomous Revenue Distribution Protocol. So
Autonomous Revenue Distribution.
I've got quite a few abbreviations, but essentially what that is, if I buy 500 rand worth of electricity on our meter in our house, every time a kilowatt gets bought, and whether that's agreed upon by the municipality on a 3 rand, 50 rand per kilowatt on that tariff, that tariff immediately settled through our banking escrow account to Eskom, to the municipality, with no human intervention. So that's what no collection problems for the municipalities. Now, we've done a few pilots. It's not obviously completely in the market. It's something that we're working on. But
Yes.
essentially, if you roll that project out completely, you've now got meters in place that cannot be hacked through ghost tokens. They cannot be bypassed. If it does get bypassed, there's notifications, alerts, and the municipality doesn't have to worry about the collection and paying back to Eskom. So essentially, it is that simple. It's just the execution of it and the understanding from municipality or government to
the political will, I guess, to do it, because everything in government moves very slowly.
Exactly. So yeah, we're working with quite a few bigger, let's say, players in the market to try and get this out there.
Okay.
There's a lot of, I know that the municipality debt sitting at about 110 billion rand.
Jeez.
So it's quite a lot, and essentially, yeah. So that government play is the slow play, and the private market is where we're trying to get into now.
Okay. Before we pivot back to solar, and maybe it's not a question that you can answer, but it's something that I was wondering about. I read last month the city of Tshwane went on a campaign where they cut off businesses' electricity accounts, and they said, "Oh, this business owes us 1.2 million. That business owes us 2.5 million." How does that work between residential and business? Because if I don't pay my electricity account, it gets cut off. How do you get to a stage where a business can rack up that amount of money without someone at least saying, "Hey guys, here is a problem"? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's difficult to wrap your head around it, but I mean, it's not even just electricity. I've been in the municipality in the Free State, Frankfurt. I think it's Mafuda.
Yes, I know it well.
I've spoken to residents there, and they don't pay for water, they don't pay for refuse, and so the municipality's whole billing structure is at fault. And when money starts disappearing and you're already in so much debt, it just becomes one of those things where how do you stop the avalanche? And essentially you can't.
No.
It is difficult to wrap your head around. There's a lot of inefficiency and fraudulent activities in government and municipalities.
Okay.
And there's really no answer to that question.
Jeez. Okay. Hopping back onto solar for a minute. So from prepaid, so we at home, I run a dual system, whereas you are on Eskom, but also we are on solar. So if I buy on prepaid Eskom power, let's say I buy 1,000 rand at the start of the month, I get an X amount of tokens, and that whole thing about the later you buy, the less you get diminishing tokens, right? Does that apply to solar as well?
Yeah, so the time of use tariffs is something that you can include. When you use solar, what time of day, how does that tariff kind of structure? But that's something with solar that it depends on what billing system you are, if you're on postpaid or prepaid. Most of the time on a post, I'm sure, I don't know how your solar system works at home, if it's fully, if you don't pay for the solar.
No, it's owned. It's fully owned. Capital. It was my capital expenditure, so it's not feeding back into the Eskom grid, because they actually came and took away that function from me for some reason.
So that comes into play when you have a power purchase agreement with the solar company. So if they're charging at the end of the month, they will maybe say the tariff is $3.10 in the evening if you're using battery solar, for example. So it's more expensive, and day when it's peak, it'll be at a different rate. That's kind of what the Eskom municipalities are doing with the tariff structures and time of use.
Yes.
But again, we're producing electricity at less than R1, and we're selling it to consumers at 1.5 rand. So there's a massive gap where things like that aren't really implementable, because tariffs are increasing to overcome municipal debt at the same time.
Yes. Okay. And then what happens to the extra power that gets generated through solar
systems?
Solar systems. Well, what happens to those? Does it get fed back into the grid? Is it stored in batteries for complex? I'm assuming there's multiple ways that you can go about it, but what is sort of the best one in your opinion?
I'm no expert in the feeding back into the grid. It's quite a complicated system. I know the city of Cape Town has implemented, the system where there's credit refunds. You've got to install a municipal meter where they can, I think it's a bi-directional meter. And then they obviously buy excess power, they pay you for it essentially. But on the solar side of things, it's a little bit more difficult. We've got something more interesting we're trying to work on. Instead of supplying into the grid. So in a couple of years, our aim is to obviously have, a lot of solar systems in residential areas where people are paying for power instead of owning it outright. So in that way, we've developed something called demand side reduction. So if there's enough solar in an area, the municipality can the solar of those houses instead of the grid with a flip of a switch, for example. Just imagine one big red button, and if the grid is overloaded and they need to switch that power somewhere instead of load shedding, everyone that's got Mezura solar panels in, just goes onto their solar, takes pressure off the grid. So no load shedding, just, moving energy efficiently.
Okay, that's interesting. What's something that when you were busy building the company and looking at all the things, what was something that you looked on paper and said, oh, this should be easy, and then at the end, it was quite hard?
I think when you're developing something that is going to work, and you just think it's such a no-brainer that it's easy to get into the market, and then you realize once you're there, it's difficult to get into the market. I think that's the most difficult thing. I think explaining to people the new structure, how it's going to work, even to municipalities, you can bring them, the saying of you can take the horse to the water, you can't make it drink. That's essentially the hardest thing is getting into the market. It doesn't matter how good your product is. It's wading through political, stances on electricity and energy. I mean, it's a massive market in South Africa.
Yes.
It's not as easy as to get in. There are metering companies that have been in play for, almost 50 years in South Africa. So it's really embedded roots. You've got contracts with municipalities have contracts with certain meter providers that are locked in for 20 years, regardless of the technology. It's not as easy to just break a contract or get in or use new technology.
Yes.
So on a public side of things now, forgetting about solar. Solar is something you can get the red tape. Essentially, it's private generation. But on the public side, it's difficult.
Okay. What's your background? How did you get into all of this? Is it something that you study engineering? Was it something that you were passionate about? How did you find yourself in this space?
Yeah, it is quite interesting. I studied in Potchefstroom.
Be bold.
Yeah, and essentially, it was during COVID times, and I've always been fascinated about, entrepreneurship and business. It was never something I saw myself getting into.
Yes.
And just one day I was like, I wasn't at home, and I needed to buy electricity. Being a student, you just bought groceries. How are you going to get back? And everything's fraud. So I was like, how can I buy this token and I can't put it on my meter? And I've got to be there physically. I don't know if it's run out. And I think it just really just sparked from there. And then for about 4 years since then, I've worked in tech with startups, building teams, learning the startup industry. And then I just met a CTO, and we decided to just go full speed. I think it's just about meeting the right people to bring ideas.
How did you meet your CTO? Because that's the number one conversation I have with founders. It's like in the tech industry, they say go to a Y Combinator, you find them there. Some meet them on boats. Somehow I've had a couple of conversations where people meet other people on boats. I think I need to learn to connect with more people who own yachts. I think that there's something to be said for that. But how did you find your CTO?
It was a long process. I remember I went to a mentor at the stage. I said to him, look, I've got this great idea. I need to bring it to life. How am I going to get this right? And he said to me, you need a CTO. And luckily for me, I work in tech, and I've helped build startups and teams and developers. So for me, not being a techie myself, I know the space quite well. So being on LinkedIn, I had a big network, so I could just message and connect with people. And funny enough, the CTO I met with, Peter Ratten,
awesome.
I messaged him and I said he had this massive beard, and I was just like, that's a great beard. And the conversation stemmed from there. And I posted something on LinkedIn saying, look, I'm hurtful. Like, the electricity scene is just shocking. Like, how do we fix this? I've got a network of developers. Someone come forward. And a couple guys commented, and we had back and forths. And he just said to me, I've got the solution. DM me. And I remember we had a couple of long nights till 1 a.m. saying, how are we going to do this? And eventually we just pulled the plug. I quit my job, and we went full steam ahead to try and do this.
And the rest is, as they say, is history. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today. If the listeners want to go and connect with you, you mentioned LinkedIn, but where can they find out more about Mezura and what you guys do if they want to get involved?
Primarily LinkedIn, that will be the place to reach out.
All right, we'll link all somewhere in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure. I can't wait to see what you guys build. And to our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. And I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Where you are.